All right. Hello and welcome, everybody. I am your host, Alejandro Rojas, and this is a special Den of Geek live stream event for the Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, the television show on the History Channel. And we have the lead investigator, Dr. Travis Taylor, with us. Hello.
Hi, how you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right.
Good. So you've got some impressive credentials. It might take me the whole half hour to read all of your degrees, but an astrophysicist, an optical scientist, you're literally a rocket scientist. So Skinwalker Ranch, maybe explain what the ranch is for people who might not know its significance.
Well, if I could explain what the ranch is, there wouldn't be a show or an investigation. I have no idea what's going on at the ranch, but the ranch is this 512-acre private property in the middle of Utah in the Uintah Basin. It's I believe the Uintah Basin is a big meteor crater that happened millions of years ago, but the ranch is right in the dead center of this bowl that's really large. I mean, like 70 miles across. And on this ranch, for hundreds, even thousands of years, people have claimed that weird things are happening there. You know, they're seeing strange entities crawling out of portals that open up in the sky, and they hear weird voices talking to them, and all sorts of people see UFOs, all sorts of strange things. And in the 90s, the billionaire Bob Bigelow bought the place and had a team of scientists investigate it for 15 years. And they gave up and left and don't want to go back. They said the place is weird. It changes its mind all the time. And I think that what they actually said was it was a precognitive sentient intelligence at work there. I don't even know what the hell that means, right?
So, this ranch, having followed your work for a few years, you're kind of on the skeptical side, which would make sense. So it was shocking. First of all, it was a little bit surprising when I saw you were participating in the show, but it was even more surprising when I talked to you after the first season. And surprisingly, you really felt there's something weird going on. Maybe not sentient consciousness or phenomena, but what convinced you there is something weird going on?
Well, you're right. When I first went out there, I thought I was going to get out there and find an elaborate hoax, or that there's some hallucinogen in the plants out there, or there's some toxic chemical the oil companies had stirred up. Who knows what, right? Or even a bad actor for some weird reason. But I've yet to find any mundane explanation and find anything that is hoaxterish. What we have found, and what I found from day one, is there's weird electromagnetic signals happening. I was exposed to gamma ray radiation. It actually made me sick for about a week or two, and I had some long lasting effects. I even had to have a surgery from a growth it caused on one of my fingers.
Wow.
There are other things. I mean, I've never seen a UFO before, never seen these weird phenomena before, but when I'm out there, I've seen more UFOs now than most people could count in a lifetime, I think, and had strange events. And, we caught UFOs on camera. Which is odd. I mean, I was never expecting them to be anything like that out there, but it is, and we got to find out what it is, because I don't believe it's contained by the fence, the barbed wire fence that keep the cows on the ranch. It's got to be more than just in that 500 acres, right?
Mm-hmm. Now, of course, a lot of times, although it shouldn't necessarily, the term UFO evokes the idea of aliens or something from another planet. Do you think there's anything like that going on?
I don't really know what's going on, and I've come up with all sorts of different hypotheses. And one of the hypotheses that we can't throw out is that, maybe it's a crashed alien spaceship there, or it's aliens visiting. It's you say it could also be, and I don't know any motivation that would lead them to this, but it could be something that our near peers like China or Russia are doing. But how did they get there in the middle of Utah? So none of it makes sense. The whole thing, just none of it makes sense. It's perplexing. And the fact that we do see weird stuff like cattle mutilation, and we have a video of when a cow is dying from some unknown reason, there's a UFO that appears overhead. We've got it on camera. I never thought I'd ever see anything like that, or even agree to say anything like that in my life. So this is an unusual situation. And I think it's important.
I think you, if I'm not mistaken, still live and work in Huntsville, Alabama, Rocket City, where
That's
there are
right.
a lot of fellow scientists out there. How have they reacted to your participation and what you've discovered?
Most of them, well, I'm getting on the upper end of the group. I'm not one of the new guys anymore, and most of them that grew up at the same kind of time frame I did, they think, wow, you're gonna do stuff like Johnny Quest got to do, or Dr. Quest did on the the Adventures of Johnny Quest, or Buckaroo Banzai, things like that you see in the movies, and most of them are like really interested and exciting, and they always have some kind of you should try this instrument and do this, that, there, and and while sometimes it's annoying, but in most cases, it's very good advice and input. So I don't discredit or ignore any of it. And there
Mm-hmm.
are a few that think, "Well, I can't believe you went out there and did that. It's going to ruin your reputation or ruin your credibility or whatever." And I don't agree with that. The scientific method never says that just because something's weird, you don't investigate it. That's to me is what scientific method's there for.
Right, exactly. And, on that note, there's been a lot of news of, for instance, the military actually taking UFO cases
Mhm.
seriously and looking into them. Robert Bigelow, who you mentioned earlier, working with the government and looking into strange things at the behest of like Harry Reid. Do you think that's appropriate? I mean, it doesn't seem like it should be out of bounds to look into genuine mysteries about things that people experience.
Well, let me tell you, if it turns out to have some sort of utility, like for example, if people hear voices out there all the time, what if it's a technology that enables you to do something like telepathy without having to use a radio or a cell phone to talk to each other? Do we want just the near peers, China and Russia, to do that and find it out? I think it would be dumb of us not as a as a government looking into these things, because if it turns out to be something new physics or miraculous or whatever, then we want to be part of that next industry or breakthrough that comes from it. We don't want the rest of the world to have it and us not, certainly. But then and if you don't find anything, well, how many times do we spend billions of dollars on things and we get nothing from it anyway, right? But this, at least we're learning techniques and investigate things that we don't truly understand, and every scientist needs that kind of training. And who knows? Like I said, we may find a diamond in the rough out there, or some kind of magic that is heretofore unknown, right?
Hmm. So season two, did you end up solving any mysteries or just adding to the list of mysteries that you're running across?
Well, we haven't. I wouldn't say we've solved any mysteries. In fact, I would say I've got way more questions than I started with. But what I will say is, using the approach that we've taken, that I'm an experimentalist mostly, and well, I do some theoretical stuff, but I prefer everything has to be based on an experiment that you can reproduce and see reproducible results. And this is the first time I think anybody at the ranch has ever conducted uh, multiple experiments the same way in repeated fashion and got at least a similar result, if not the same result. So we did some experiments this year that we had done in the previous year, but a little more meticulous. And then we did some new experiments, but we repeated them a couple of weeks apart from each other. And we got a very similar result, which means maybe we're learning how to stimulate this phenomena. But who knows? We come back this summer and do the same thing. We may get a completely different result. The ranch, like I said, the ranch changes its mind sometimes.
I want to get to some questions that are in the chat here, but my last one before we do that is just something I've ran across. It's pretty strange when I've interviewed people who have worked at the ranch, and including you all not too long ago. This hitchhiker idea, where
Right.
some of the people working at the ranch say they go home and they continue to experience these weird things at their own homes. Have you witnessed that with others and yourself?
Yeah, we don't like talk about the hitchhiker too much because everybody's afraid it's going to trigger it or something. But I have
Mm.
several colleagues that we're putting instruments out to measure things at their house as well as at the ranch, and we're measuring simultaneous events occurring at both places that may be 1,000 miles apart. It's happened to me. I've had events where a brand new car, something just shuts off Suddenly all the lights on it start blinking on and off, acting crazy, which we've seen happen at the ranch. And something was going on at the same time at the ranch. I had an event, actually it'll be in this season. I won't talk too much about it for spoilers, but I was here on the weekend and was about to get ready to head back to the ranch on Sunday. And I have cameras that I could look at through my phone, and was seeing a phenomena on the phone happening on the ranch, and alerted people there that were still there to go look at it. And there was some strangeness in what they saw versus what I saw. So somehow or other, the ranch was confusing what I was seeing from here and there. And without getting too much of it, it was just weird, absolutely weird. And why it happened at my house, I don't know.
Wow. And we're going to have that. We're going to see that incident on season 2.
I think you will. I mean, we did it this summer, and we filmed it all, and we'll at least talk about it, I'm sure.
All right. We've got some questions here. John wants to know, have you commuted telepathically with any beings?
I have not communicated telepathically with any beings, although there is a phenomena that occurs where people think they're hearing a voice. It sounds kind of like when you're tuning into a radio station and you're not quite on the radio station and you hear it. I think it's microwave related, and it may cause something like your inner ear to be confused or something. But there was no communication taking place in any particular time. Although there are people who claim they are having communication, so I don't know.
The Signal is asking, have you looked at any petroglyphs on the ranch? And he'd love to hear your thoughts on the history of the area and how you've involved experts in that area.
Yes, we have found petroglyphs. We have looked at petroglyphs. We've looked at geoglyphs all around that people don't realize are there. It's really interesting. There is a story being told. I don't know how much to talk about right now, because I don't know how much of this is going to make it in. So I haven't seen season 2 yet either. I mean, I know what we filmed, but I don't know what's going to make it on the show. So I will tell you that there is a story that the petroglyphs tell that, at least from my interpretation and a couple of the guys from like Ancient Aliens that have looked at it, we think it's telling us a story that might say something like ancient astronauts are involved.
Very interesting. The Unidentified Celebrity Review is asking, what is the most concrete scientific data you've collected while at the ranch?
Well, the first and foremost would be myself being exposed to gamma ray radiation and getting radiation sickness, where I was sick for about a week or 2 afterwards, and even, like I said, had a surgery from it. And we had experts that support Navy nuclear vessels come out and test the area, and found zero evidence of any radioactivity. And so we don't have technology to create transient radiation events like that. That to me is evidence of something weird, right? I didn't just imagine getting sick. I actually got sick. And I didn't just imagine the surgery. I still have the scar on my finger to prove it. Then we also, while we were launching rockets, there's one that happened this season. I'm not going to tell you. You just got to wait and see it. But it's just definitive evidence of something crazy. Actually, we got two such instances. But when we launched rockets to this area 5,000 feet above the ranch, where we think there's an energy anomaly, 20 people standing around, 3 or 4 cameras running, scientific instruments detecting microwaves and gamma rays and gravitational anomalies. A UFO appeared overhead and then stayed for about 30 seconds and then went away. And all that showed up on every instrument we had running. So to me, that's scientific evidence of some kind of phenomena occurred on that day.
Wow. And to your knowledge, having done this now and had a whole season air, are there any other areas that have the same sort of activity that you've ran across or people have told you about?
Well, I've heard about Dulce, New Mexico being a similar impact, and maybe we'll get around to go look at that if we get a chance. But gosh, I can see Skinwalker Ranch keeping us busy forever. But there's also upstate New York. There's apparently a place that's very similar, and there's a place in Italy that I've been told is very similar. I'm beginning to think. I actually did a study. I think this will be on one of the episodes this season. I did an analysis of places that look very similar to the Skinwalker Ranch area, like a high altitude basin kind of area, and found where historical or mythological events occurred on those particular sites, and they all look very similar geographically and geologically. I don't know what that means, but there is a somewhat of coincidence. Like, for example, the burning bush took place on a place that looks a lot like Skinwalker Ranch. So maybe there's something to that.
And you had mentioned before that the phenomena doesn't stop at the fence line of the Skinwalker Ranch. So are neighboring properties, someone is asking, having similar phenomena?
Some folks have reached out to us to expand our investigation onto adjacent properties, but I think there's some property rights, legal issues being worked by the owners, with each other, making agreements and stuff. So I don't think I'm legally supposed to talk about any of it. But what I can say is, yeah, that even the locals that live in the town nearby, about 5 miles away, Roosevelt, they're always sending us text messages where they're seeing stuff in the sky, or something's happened to them. They have weird phenomena occur, or symptoms or something. So I think this is Uintah Basin wide, and that Skinwalker Ranch is in the dead center of it.
Someone is asking, at the end of season 1 that you had talked about possibly building a cube satellite. Have you gone forward with that project?
Well, so I do that as my day job. In fact, I've got one on the space station right now, and I'm building another, and I've got a couple that's in the pipeline. But we have been talking to some folks about putting up a satellite that could make some particular measurements that would come over the ranch, on occasional orbits. And I'm not sure where we are in the negotiations on that yet, but it's in the works, and we are planning on doing it. And I am looking into satellites that are already up there that get over the ranch on their orbits, and talking to the owners and the proprietors of those about letting us see what the instruments records show when they came over. So there might be some anomalies already recorded. We just don't know it yet.
Now, along those lines, with your history of working with the government, government contracts, working with NASA, when it comes to the investigation of these sort of things, how involved do you feel the government should be? Often you have a lot of the people out in the public saying government needs to tell us what's going on with ghosts and aliens and all of this stuff. What do you think is appropriate, actually?
Well, so I'll tell you this, and people probably don't like my response to that question. I get it all the time. Is if the government has a program and they discovered that there's a phenomena there that our technology can't keep up with, we certainly would never want to release that to the general public, because our near peers would know it then, and they might could see that a particular weakness in our technology that we have. Like, for example, our F-18s couldn't chase whatever it was that's in the gimbal video that the Navy released, right? And they couldn't catch it or figure out what it was. So that just told the world right there that whatever this thing is, it outdoes our F-18s. I think that's a very bad thing for the general public to have out there, because our near peers can look at that and think, well, maybe we should design our fighter craft to look something like that and to try and do these types of things. And not only that, it tells them what our F-18s can do, right? So I'm all for telling people that the government's looking, the government's really investigating, that it's a real phenomena or not a real phenomena. It's something to be taken seriously. But what the government should probably not tell us is exactly what it is they find. But I mean, there should be some level of, there's something going on here that the general public could know about. I don't think it should be completely just we never know, right?
Right. And I agree with you. It's a very sensitive topic. There's certainly things they cannot share, but it would be nice if there could be some sort of vehicle to share data with, like, citizen scientists or scientific or academics to kind of look into some of the truly mysterious stuff.
Well, if you think about it, there's really no mechanism for the general public citizen to report a sighting or an incident. Who do you report that to? Right now, people kind of report to their local sheriff or maybe to the FAA or something. But there is no one particular entity who's in charge of taking reports from the general public. So that's something that we need to think about as a culture and as a country, as a civilization.
All right, some more questions from the chat. Have you ever witnessed any poltergeist activity on the ranch? And if yes, has any of this activity been caught on camera?
Well, I wouldn't call it poltergeist. Poltergeist is a thing where you say it's an unexplainable, supernatural, paranormal, ghost kind of phenomena. And while there may be phenomena like that, I don't believe anything is paranormal, because that means it's outside of normal and science couldn't explain it. I believe science can explain everything if we get smart enough to do it. Now, that said, I've seen some really weird things, and got some of it on camera this summer. That'll be on the new season. And we chased some things around, not knowing what they were. Still don't know what they were, but we did get video evidence, infrared evidence, and other types of evidence along the way. So I think when people see it, they're going to be, man, I don't know if I would stay out there overnight either.
That's exciting. I think you kind of touched on this, but I guess to clarify, there's a ethereal aura is saying that they have the sense that perhaps radiation has something to do with a meteor impact or a meteor in the area. Is that possible, or is that ruled out by that test that you said was done?
Well, so if it was something that was there, and we would have detected it with instruments we had, because it would still be there, right? If it was a meteor impact and it hit, it wouldn't be turning itself on and off. And here's the thing. There were people standing around me with radiation meters on as well, within 6 to 10 feet. None of their meters went off. Mine specifically went off. Only me and the camera guy that was like directly like a foot above me with the camera looking over me. We're the only two that showed any symptoms of being exposed to radiation. We don't have technology that puts radiation in a beam like that and turns it on and off like that. So if it's a meteor that has switches on it and some kind of very interesting gamma ray beam device.
John is asking, was anybody else physically hurt by any of the phenomena on the ranch?
Well, Thomas Winterton was near death with whatever happened to him. He was bulldozing on the ranch with a skid steer, clearing out a roadway, and then a voice came in his head and told him it's time for him to go home. And when he did, the next morning he woke up with brain trauma and was in intensive care for 2 weeks, almost dead. And we have no cause of injury. We had multiple doctors look at him, and the best we can see is some sort of radiation exposure to his brain is what was the cause of this, but we are not certain.
Wow, that's incredible. The Signal is asking, this is a very detailed, they're looking at all the details on the everything behind you all, and he says there's a map on the wall in the command center with a triangle marked on it. Looks like there's a triangle in Cuba, China, and the Uintah Basin. Can you shed any light on that?
Yeah, I'm not sure how much of it I want to talk about, but there is injuries a lot like Thomas Winterton's that have occurred in those 3 spots, and they're completely unexplained. And we're trying to figure out if there's a connection between all of those. And is it technological? Is it a bad actor doing something? Or is it just they got a weird place like Skinwalker Ranch in those locations? But that's what that means.
Interesting. Very interesting. And are those at investigations that are in the background, or may that show up on the television show?
A little of both. I don't know. Again, we'll film a week for 43 minutes. So I don't know what's going to make it in those 43 minutes each week.
Right. So another question, Mary asks, does the belief system of an individual make a difference in whether a person is affected by the phenomenon?
Very good question. We actually, I had that thought, and Dragon and I actually talked about that. A lot of people think for some reason, the way the show gets said, that me and Dragon don't get along. I don't know why. Dragon's one of my best friends in the world. I love that guy to death. We talk on the phone all the time when I'm not there, and we're kindred spirits. But he and I were talking about it, and I'm a completely different faith than those guys out there are. They're all LDS guys, And then I have a colleague on Ancient Aliens, the Rabbi Ariel Zadok. He's Jewish. And so we were talking to him, Dragon Eye and the rabbi, and we're like, well, they claim these portals open up out there all the time, and we don't see it. And the rabbi says, there's a Jewish ritual to open portals. And I'm like, no, there's not a Jewish ritual to open portals. and he says, well, yes. and so you'll get to see maybe us discussing that and maybe some of the ramifications of that particular ritual.
Wow, very interesting. So another person is referencing kind of one of the more famous incidents in the past and wants to hear what you think about it. An event where allegedly previous owners, their dogs had chased some orbs and disappeared, and the owner felt that he had found what could have been their remains in the form of these mounds of goo or something.
Yeah, there's a lot of stories. There's a lot of stories about that. Most of them were kind of perpetuated in the Nat Kelleher book, Hunt for Skinwalker or something like that. Well, we actually had one of the living relatives of the Shermans come out and tell us what happened and show us where things were and where these things were. And the book gets the story completely wrong according to the eyewitness that lived through it. It happened in a different location. It did happen very weird. They did not ever find their dogs, and they did see an orb that bounced around on the mesa right before the dogs vanished. Now, I'd have to go back and basically rewatch the episode or whatever, the footage from the interview with him. But I don't recall him saying, like in the book, it says they found like 3 greasy spots the next day in the woods where the dogs had vanished. I don't know. I don't think I recall him saying that, but he did say the dogs were, you know what he did say? He said the dogs were flattened, like you'd run over them with a bulldozer. That's what I think is what he said. Or a rock had fallen on them. But there were no rocks or anything. I think that's what he had told us. And then he told us other stories, too, about hearing crazy voices, seeing things move that shouldn't have been moved, all kind of weird stuff. I mean, I'm not saying that the Nat book was making stuff up. I'm saying they probably got it like it's a game of telephone. They heard the story from a source that heard it from another source, probably, right?
Mm-hmm. Now, you talked about Winterton getting hurt, and of course, you had your incident. However, humans don't seem to be affected too often, but animals seem to be affected quite a bit. The dogs, you talked about the other cattle dying and the UFO being around. Have you experienced that as well? Like a lot of mysterious cattle deaths?
No, in fact, in the 2 summers I've been there, there's only been 1 cattle death. Unless they had one after I left in October, but I think the cows were about to leave, and at that point, they always stay there in the summer to eat the grass to keep fires from taking over. The 1 cow that died, and we investigated it. I mean, all sort of DNA tests, 2 or 3 different forensic veterinarians look at it, and there's no real good cause of death description other than it died of rapid onset pneumonia from stress. That seems to be what they say. And in the dying moments of it, we have it on camera. We just happen to have a camera looking in that direction. There's cameras all over, and we move them based on what's of interest that day. And there just happened to be one still pointed. The cow wandered over right in the middle of the frame, lays down. Then a UFO flies over and hovers right over his head. The cow raises up like it's trying to move away, and then the UFO takes off. And I did calculations on it. This thing, whatever it was moving faster than from 0 to faster than a rifle bullet. And we don't have airplanes that do that. We have some solid rocket motor missiles that do that, but those missiles can't hover and then take off. They go from you ignite them and they're gone. So I don't know what this thing was.
That's pretty extraordinary. And I mean, all of these events, from the military events we're hearing about to the events that you all are recording, do you think we're any closer to actually figuring out what these things are?
Well, I tell you what I think we're closer to. I think we're closer to getting rid of this giggle fringe factor that is in the phenomena. For decades and decades, it'd be the death knell in a scientist's career to go and start studying these things. But I think we're realizing that the phenomena is real. We don't know what the phenomena is. I can't say it's aliens. I can't say it's not earthquake lights. But what I can say is it's real. I've seen it with my own eyes. I've measured it with scientific instruments, multiple scientific instruments. So the phenomena is real. Now the question is, what is it?
And I have a feeling that you wouldn't have said this before you started working on the show.
No, absolutely not. Well,
Mm-hmm.
before I started working on the show, in fact, I told them that was the first day that I met Dragon and Thomas and Eric. I told them I thought they were, crazy, and they joke and say, "Yeah, we were looking for a place to bury a body after we met you the first time," because they thought what was I going to come in there and tell them that they were making all that up after all this time they had been there, and then I'm there for 30 minutes and crazy stuff starts happening. So I don't know how to explain it. I don't know what it is. I know that for some reason that location is a hot spot for unexplained, unusual, undescribed physical phenomena that we can't explain yet. That's all I can say about it. That's all I know about it.
One last question, and then we'll wrap this up. Thank you so much for your time. But I think I know the answer to this, but it's a good question. Do you think guns can fight off or protect from the phenomena that lingers at the ranch? If not, why so many loaded weapons when filming?
Well, let me tell you about that. There are a couple things that you got to realize. This is a ranch. Dragon and I were looking at petroglyphs one evening and in a cave, or it's not really a cave, it's just an overhang. And then we looked down and I saw like what looked like little bitty kitten paw prints, but they were very big kitten paw prints. And then we realized there were some that were bigger than your hand. And I realized we were in a den of mama mountain lion and some mama mountain lion cubs. And number one, we eased out and got the heck away from there. But had we stumbled in on that thing when it was in there, it could have been a bad news, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there are other animals that are, it's the wilderness. But just because we think it's some kind of science fiction or paranormal or fantasy phenomena that if it is there, we can shoot bullets at it and they're going to bounce off, go through it, or not have any impact on it, doesn't mean I want to be there completely unprotected. I mean, to me, that just, you go in not looking for a fight, but you certainly want to be prepared for one in case it occurs.
And I know you all have a problem with humans trying to get on the ranch when they're inappropriate times.
I hate to talk about it because it encourages other people, but we say it every time. Look, folks, we're doing scientific experiments. In some cases, they're dangerous. Like we had a laser out there this year that would burn your eyeballs out if you just happened to be looking in the wrong direction when we were doing the experiment. So we closed the ranch down and we put up safety caution signs and all this. But if somebody tried to sneak on the ranch just because they wanted to be on the ranch and they got in there, they could have got blinded for life, right? There are things like that you don't go on private property without permission because you don't know what the people are doing on the private property. And besides that, we don't walk around on the ranch by ourselves out of sight of each other either because we don't know what this phenomena is. We don't know if it's dangerous or not. I mean, look at Thomas Winterton. Look at the radiation sickness I had. You don't know what could happen to you, and don't go out there thinking you're going to go out and meditate and make communication with aliens from Zeta Reticuli and it be all perfectly calm and honky dory, right? So I just warn people: don't think that that's a good idea.
Right, and this person has been trying to get this question, and I'm very sorry if you have time for one short question. It's a great one. He's wondering, how do you convince other scientists that this sort of research or investigation is worthwhile?
Oh, well, we show them the data and the evidence of something that can't be explained. And if you have something that can't be explained with modern physics as we know it, that means there's more physics than we know. And that is huge.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. The new season starts May 4th. You and I, and we'll all get to finally see it then and see what makes it in. Sounds like a lot of exciting stuff. And of course, that's on the History Channel. Thank you so much for joining us. And this has been wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining. Keep an eye out for Den of Geek. We also will have an interview with Brandon Fugel, a written interview coming out in the next couple of weeks as well. He is the owner of the ranch, and you see him flying in sometimes to talk to Travis and the guys. So we'll have that soon. But otherwise, thank you all so much for joining. we'll talk to you all later. Thanks again.